Well, we have come to the second Soviet turn, and the Axis are, as they say, at the gates of Moscow. But the Soviets have declared the Great Patriotic War, which is going to allow them to call up quite a few troops. Because what the Great Patriotic War does is as we've said, the Russians did not collect or expend any production on the first turn, but now, starting this turn, they do, and it will cost them one less good for each ground unit that's resurrected. And if they have any non-upfront, disorganized in-supply units, they can reorganize them for free. That's not the case right now. That particular thing is irrelevant, but in the long game it would be. And if the offensive kit is purchased, they can reorganize 2 upfront disorganized and supplied ground units at no cost. They can initiate battles on the 1 to 2 column, which allows them to launch potential spoiling attacks as needed. And this is the bad thing. They purchase the offensive kit at double the cost for the rest of the game. So that will hurt when they get back to running along on the offensive. And what they have is 18 goods and 6 oils. So they've got quite a lot to work with here, which they're going to need because, as you can see, the Axis are all over the place. I think as I look at this, from the Russian point of view, obviously, we don't want to let Moscow fall, right? But I believe we'll be able to hold Moscow with the units that we're able to bring into the game on this turn. I'm confident of that. But fourth turn, maybe not. But that's not an immediate loss, I don't think. But for the Soviets, this entire part of their country is very vulnerable right now. And although the Germans' intention is to capture Moscow, given the fact that they seem pretty clearly not to be trying for Leningrad, and so not going to be trying a turn 3 sudden death victory, it seems like, getting some defensive units, getting some units aligned to defend Rostov seems pretty important to me. Although, as I say that, and as the German player, I find myself wondering if it would be possible to make a reasonable attack against Leningrad, but I just don't. If I'd set this up differently as the Germans, if I had, one of these, like this unit, if I had it here, then it would be able to go, 1, 2, 3, and then this unit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then so we'd have 5, 11, we'd have 15 attacking 6. If you had some air units, possible. Anyhow, that's not what's happened. So I think that the Russians know what they need to do. They need to make sure that Moscow gets defended at all costs, and then try to set up a defensive perimeter around Rostov particularly, but all of these cities. So the Germans, on their last turn, they did capture two factories, so they will, on their next turn, be having, oh, you know what? I messed that up. The Germans, that factory, the Germans should have had 1 extra production good that I didn't grant them. I'll put that there for future use. And so they, you don't want to let, certainly on the third turn, you don't want to let the Germans then take 2 more production centers and have all that extra goods available, so that if they get worn down in the attack on Moscow, they have enough to replenish it, right? So I think I've said enough about the objective for the Soviets to defend both Moscow and Rostov and the surrounding production areas. Yeah, I think that's, look at this, I blew it again. That's, well, no, I didn't blow that yet, but that's another production point that the Germans, or production source that the Germans captured. Should have made sure I got there, shouldn't I? All right, enough talking about the Germans. On the Russians now. So I'm gonna just do some quick calculations in my head while the video's on pause. So we also have to talk about cards. On the first turn, the Russians drew the Sturmovik card, which is a strategic card that they could have played, but they did Great Patriotic War instead. Playing this card allows them to turn their cadre air units into full-strength air units, which over time will certainly be helpful, and at this point probably will be good. The other strategic card that they have left, that they drew into their hand at this point, is Iran joins the Axis. And yeah, if you were wondering why Iran joining the Axis would be good for the Soviets, you're not alone. That's an Axis card that remains in their hand. They declined to play that. So the Axis, the Russians also drew this. This is a tactical card, Katusha, and it can be applied to a specific battle, and it provides one shift for the Russians in that battle. So this is the only strategic card in their hand. The Russians will play this. And so now they may not only resurrect eliminated air units, but turn them full strength, and this will be available for an upcoming battle. So the Russians had 18 goods and 6 oil to start the turn. Because of the Great Patriotic War, each infantry unit costs only 1 good to bring in, and each armored unit costs 0 goods and 1 oil. So we see that the Soviets are bringing in 2 armored units for 2 oil, and they're going to resurrect for 2 goods and 2 oil an air unit, and then they're going to also turn it into a full-strength air unit. I think that that is something that will be handy if I can keep this air unit out of the thick of things initially and have it available to defend Moscow. So that's all of the oil that the Russians have, but now they have a whole bunch more production goods, and so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 infantry units that will come back into the fray. And not only that, but they will have 8 production goods remaining at the end of this turn that they will be able to utilize on the next turn. So they used all their oil and 10 of their 8 production, and they're going to now place these. These units here are the remaining destroyed units. These 3 infantry and this Air Force unit were out of supply when they were destroyed, and so they were in the Huey's box. So they were not available this turn. They will be available next turn. The 2 cavalry units, the armor unit and this air unit, were available to be brought back in, but I thought it was more efficient to do it this way, so that's what I did. Next turn, the Russians will have access to these units and a reinforcement unit that will come in. And so the Russians also have 8 production goods remaining to do if they need to do any kind of reorganizing reorganizing of units on the map. But I don't, they could reorganize this unit. It would normally cost 1 good, and because this is an upfront unit, it would cost a 2nd good. But you know, they're in C supply, and so it might be they're not able to replenish or upgrade, but they can reorganize. So I think that that's worth it. I think that taking a hit from this will force the Axis to keep a little bit going on here. So that will be 2 more goods. So there's the upfront penalty. Being an upfront unit, it costs an extra good to do what you want to do. And then there is, I didn't even show you where that unit was, did I? This unit here was disorganized, and now it's organized. And this unit here is disorganized and out of supply, so there's nothing that the Soviets can do for it, and that's probably nothing needs to be done. It's going to be eliminated at the end of this turn, and it won't be of any use. So I'm going to place the reinforcements, and then we will be back for some movement. Okay, I think I am set on my reinforcement entry for the Soviets. All the upside down units are reinforcements. So, of course, we came back in and defended this area up here, this line towards Moscow. These are the strongest infantry units that remain, these 3-strength units. Put them up there where they could potentially do the most good. And one more of those 3-strength units is actually down here in Sevastopol. Again, there has to be a unit there. You can't just let the Germans run down there and take it for free. If they do come, it's a fortress. This will hold. In fact, I'm so confident that will hold that I'm going to make it. No, I'm going to do this. If the Germans end up bypassing it, then that's a rail yard. So on the 4th turn, that unit could rail out of there if it wanted to. And then the Germans, I talked about not wanting to give this factory up, but I just don't think there's any way to defend this factory city. I don't know how to say it. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I don't think I can defend that factory city effectively, so I put my ground units here. Note there's one armor unit here and one armor unit here. The armor doesn't do any particular good in the cities and forests around Moscow, but this is open terrain, and if the Germans do send a spearhead that way, there could potentially be a Soviet armored response down there. And the Soviets do have a nice line of rivers here, although this city is not necessarily protected by a river. But again, beggars can't always be choosers. And so then I have this unit here in Krasnodar. My thinking is during one of the movement phases, it will just move up here and sort of try to provide an anchor here so that the Axis can't come and flank this unit here without crossing rivers and whatnot. And the full-strength air unit I put back here in Gorky. As I said, I want to keep that available for the final turn, or at least for the battle for Moscow. So I'm not exactly sure whether the Soviets are likely to have any particular air reaction markers available to them. But in case they do, it'd be nice to be able to send one full-strength unit in to combat the Luftwaffe at even odds. And then I stuck an infantry here in Voronezh. It's also a rail yard, so if I want to rail it out, I can. But I thought that it was important not to just leave this whole area wide open, right? Zone of control, zone of control. The Axis can get in there, probably take this or both if they really want to, but that doesn't do them a lot of good in terms of winning the game. So that's how I have opted to line up the Soviet defense. I did wonder if maybe I should add, send one unit up here just in case the Axis try to come up there, but I don't think that will happen. And even if it does, if it does, then if they succeed in that, then that's a good, bold generalship. All right, so that is all that the Soviets are able to do in preparation. They will now have to do some moving. They can do one strategic rail move, which I don't have anything here to do a strategic. I have no plans for a strategic rail move on this turn. Now they get to do their operational ground movement. I'll sort of rejigger these things. So this is the operational movement. They can't end up in an upfront hex, but they can just spend only 1 MP per hex move. So 1, 2, that unit makes it there. I need to indicate it's not able to move during the regular ground unit movement phase, which it does not intend to do in any case. And yeah, I don't I just don't think there's much else for the Soviets to do. If we come, I'll come back over here towards the Black Sea in just a minute. This air unit needs to get out of here and get into a city, somewhere where it can't be overrun and destroyed. And other than that, I guess if the Russians really wanted to just say, take Leningrad if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that would be silly. And so I could potentially bring this unit up here if I wanted to sort of force the issue to make this a zone of control. And so it costs 2 to move out, and then they would have to stop. So that would pin that armor unit either. Yeah, maybe I should do that. Well, yeah, who knows? So now one unfortunate thing for the Soviets that I didn't actually consider is this armor unit here. It is not this terrain and this terrain are ineligible for armor units to enter. And so it has enough movement points to move here, and it would even have enough to keep going, but it has to stop if it moves there. So this unit can't do operational movement, but that unit might be stuck there and either have to put itself in open terrain, which it will probably do in the actual ground movement phase. This is operational movement, though, but I just don't think I have any other operational movement. I imagine on the next turn I will end up with well, you know what, now can the Germans, if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they can make the Axis can't get into Stalingrad, but they can make their way to the gates of Stalingrad. I wonder if or they could surround Voronezh with armor, and so I was thinking that maybe this armor unit should be there, but I don't think that's a smart idea. So I think that's basically the operational ground movement for the Soviets, and now the regular ground movement. And I think that there's sort of no question that the Soviets want to move this armor unit back here, even though it could easily get destroyed if the Axis wants to spend an armor unit fighting this unit instead of attacking Moscow. I think that's all for the good. And yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else for the Soviets to do. Let's just take a peek back here at whoops, sorry for the shadow. At Odessa and surrounding environs. This unit could actually move here for its full movement, and then this unit could move here, so that exposes that unit, but it does close a little bit of the gates. It makes it harder for the Axis to make a run down to Sevastopol if they are going to try to do that. So I think that those are sensible moves. So it's 1, 2 to cross the river, and then 1 extra 1 to... No, wait, that's not right, is it? Yeah, I was wrong about that, sadly, for the Russians. It costs 2 movement points to move from one zone of control indirectly into another, and so that would be 2 to cross the river and get into the flatland and open terrain, and then so they can't do that. So they just have to sit there and try to fight their way out. So that's it for the Soviets. But oh my goodness, you know what I did not consider? The Soviets have 1 and only 1 upfront unit, or 2 upfront units right now. So they've got 3, 4, 5, I think 6, 7, 8, 9, because this is a fortress city. So they have 9 going against 5 and 8. So yeah, so that actually works out a little bit better. So in the attrition phase, they will have, am I right? Oh no, obviously, I'm not right about that. So 2 and 3, 6, because it's in a fortress. And so and then 3 is 9, and then 6 more is 15, and the Germans have 5, 13, 17, 21, 24. So 24 to 13 on the attrition table is the 24 to 23. So it's it's this right here. And so now we will roll. And so that does allow the Soviets to claim an attrition hex, doesn't it? I wonder if I guess it depends how many hits. So let's roll that's a 4. And so on the 4, no, wait, there's no roll. There's no roll for the attrition. It's just this. Each side suffers a hit, and the Soviets are able to claim an attrition hex, which I did not think of or plan for. And wow, look at that. The Woods is claimable. So, So the Soviets may have done a little good for themselves. So first, the Soviets have to apply a hit somewhere to their unit, and the Axis have to apply one to their unit. So I think we will disorganize that infantry again. That's the infantry back there behind west of Odessa. And I think the Axis will take their disorganization on the Romanian infantry that are stacked with the Italian infantry, also in the Odessa region. And so now the Soviets can claim an attrition hex, and Woods hexes are claimable. So that, I think, is really good for the Soviets, right? I'm not getting this wrong, am I? This unit has no choice but to retreat here. Or, no, I think, well, so it's got a choice. It will retreat here regardless. And I can't remember if you're allowed to retreat into a zone of control. I think probably not. And so then the Soviets will move in there, and that gives them the defensive terrain of the Woods. Although what it really does is moves the Germans a little bit farther away from Moscow. And the Soviets also have a single air reaction available to them on this turn. No, they don't. They can, if they had purchased the offensive chit, they would be allowed to initiate combat in one hex. They did not purchase the chit. They have no hex that they would want to do that into anyway. So that is the attrition phase. There is no ground combat phase. And the Axis would have had one air reaction marker available to them. And that's effectively, except for some cleanup and housekeeping stuff, that is effectively the end of Soviet turn 2. So unless you hear from me again after I get done speaking here, we will be moving on to the Axis third turn.